I think it's such an interesting couples dynamic, Sydney and Carmi.
Yeah.
It is a dyad. It is these two people trying to make their way through what are we going to do with our lives? What are we going to do with this restaurant? So in this series, we're examining the attachment themes strewn throughout the FX Hulu show, The Bear. We will be discussing in detail each episode as the story unfolds so that you can watch or rewatch before you listen and then follow along with our discussion. We have seen all the episodes, but we won't discuss any content beyond the episodes we're discussing. So if you haven't seen the show, press pause now, go watch, and hop back on to the podcast. So Michael, welcome back to the same seats in the same space with the same people. It's so good to see you again.
So good to see you.
And good to be doing this again.
Yeah.
You've made another delicious cocktail for us.
I have.
Two therapists. Drinks with therapists.
Drinks with therapists.
Uh-huh. What'd you make this time?
This time, because we needed to crank the stimulus up because the show isn't stimulating enough, The Bear. But we're doing an espresso old-fashioned. An espresso old-fashioned. So it's the basic building blocks of an old-fashioned. So you have bourbon, bitters, and simple syrup. And then you add a shot of espresso on top of it. All right. We are now making the espresso old-fashioned. Let's get it going. And it's just a delight.
And the bitters that you used is not Angostura.
Did you say it right? Because I'm still not going to know.
That was my best attempt.
No, the recipe I follow usually calls for pecan bitters. I did not have those, so I used chocolate because I feel like chocolate and coffee pair well together.
Right.
So, yeah, it is 2 ounces of bourbon, a half ounce of simple syrup, and 2 dashes of bitters, with a full ounce of, this is actually espresso. You could use coffee if you wanted, but what do you think? We haven't had it yet. Is there going to be an episode you're like, this is shit. This is just awful.
We shared this cocktail with a colleague. Mm-hmm. And
let him drink it, but we didn't drink
it. That's right. And he said that it just tasted like espresso, and it's not very bourbon forward.
No.
Yeah, the espresso really absorbs the lovely flavor of bourbon.
Yeah. Yeah, so it doesn't have a punch to it.
That would be dangerous in a Starbucks cup. Walking down.
Yeah, because you definitely have 2 ounces of bitters, or 2 ounces of bourbon in your drink. Yeah. But it does not taste like it.
If that was in a Starbucks cup, I would just be like slurping it down.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
So, this episode, titled Hands. Why did I say it like that?
Yeah, hands.
Hands.
Jazz hands or otherwise. What thoughts about hands as a theme?
As a theme, well, it's something throughout the show, they yell. They literally just...
Yeah.
To me, it's almost like a refocus, a call to attention. Yeah, a call back to the line, realign your focus, stay on mission. It's ask for help, in a way.
Yeah.
Again, it's demanded.
Yeah, if it's barked, if it's yelled, if it's screamed or cried for, it's still a bid for help, for connection, for collaboration.
I don't know if you just heard me. I said a plead. I don't know what a plead is.
A plea?
A plea.
A past tense plea?
But yes, a bid, a plea for help, a need.
And a call for collaboration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And security of attachment is drenched in collaborative attitudes, collaborative stances, collaborative perspectives, collaborative behavior.
The problem with drinks with a therapist But yeah, like it is, there's so many meanings to it, it seems. But yeah, I think you did want to focus a little bit more on collaboration.
Well, it's just the juxtaposition from the first episode, which is called System, where you have many hands that aren't working collaboratively. And the trajectory, it seems, of I can see in this first two episodes are all these movements toward, or these attempts toward, or hopes and requests and bids toward something that is more collaborative. And what you see with all of the insecure attachment classifications is difficulties in being collaborative, difficulties in collaborative perspectives, or being able to perceive collaborative
perceive,
bids.
Understand the mind of the other.
Yeah. And so in this kind of juxtaposition, we're moving toward a system that needs hands that are going to work differently together.
More collaboratively.
Yeah. And I think you're the one who works with couples more often clinically, but I think much of what an attachment-informed couples therapy is trying to do, you tell me if I have this right or wrong, but is each couple grow the capacity, learn to appreciate the collaborative intention of each partner, to see the intention of help me get my needs met.
Yeah, to use some of the language we've used in prior episodes, it is the collaboration, the attunement of the couple. And so many times it's going to be, most often what I see that comes into the office at least, is going to be a dismissive, avoidant paired with a preoccupied, anxious attachment. And part of the role there is in the attunement is to turn up the volume on the dismissive avoidant and to turn down the volume on the preoccupied, anxiously attached, so that they can collaborate.
Yeah.
But when they're tuning the opposite direction of one another, they just miss and they can't connect. So yeah, does that fit with what you're saying?
Yeah, it does. It fits. But also, I think there's a sort of metacognitive capacity that you're trying to build in each of them to see from the other person's perspective,
absolutely,
what's motivating their behavior. And they can't understand that until they leave their own mind and really enter the other person's mind,
right,
which is in and of itself a collaborative event or phenomenon.
Right. And we can't do until we feel even the slightest sense of safety.
Sure.
To do so.
Yeah. Especially for folks that are insecurely attached.
Right.
Yeah. The threat really compromises their capacity
to reach over.
Yeah.
To request hands.
So hands as also, it's an interesting sort of, it's not a whole body. It's, it's a part of a body.
A very utilitarian part of the body.
And yet it's an important part of the body in terms of getting things done. And it's also symbolic of the whole person. Shorthand for bring your talent, bring your presence.
Is that a pun?
Shorthand? Oh, no. That's just the unconscious. So it's become a funny thing that our family has begun whenever we want to ask for help.
Oh, really?
From any part of the house.
Yeah.
We'll sort of just yell hands.
That is fun. We end up doing heard. And that's usually kind of in a sarcastic way, a passive aggressive way.
When some tension
heard.
is.
Yeah, got it.
We also yell or respond to each other with yes, chef, whenever some request has been made. Or, do you want to go move into the episode as it opens up with another dream?
Another dream, yeah, which I was excited since we opened the last one with the dream and analyzed it a little bit or made observations.
Yeah, sure. So one thing I think is interesting as another theme is, particularly this isn't exactly attachment, it's more in the Freudian tradition. We understand dreams to be the way in which the unconscious is trying to test the waters. hey, are you ready to deal with something?
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready to grapple with, confront, accept, examine some part of who you are, your life experiences, and the emotions around therein? And so it seems like, conscious or otherwise, these writers are suggesting that either a particular character, in this case Carmi, or all the characters, or a whole family system is trying to see. The unconscious of Carmi is trying to see, hey, Carmi, are you ready to deal with something? And the waters that are keep it through the dreams, trying to test the waters. And I think the answer on some level is Carmi is not ready, even though he wants to be ready.
Wants to desperately. Feels that he should be ready.
And he desperately needs to be ready if he's going to grow and not replicate such horrific kinds of experiences. And so the dream opens with, it's sort of a question, is this a flashback? Because the first dream was very symbolic, because I doubt that it's a flashback of a time that Carmi was on a bridge with a caged bear. So it's very symbolic and euphoric. But the second dream has all these qualities of, is this a flashback? Or again, is this some sort of interesting construction of the mind that is a projection of Carmi? On the one hand, it seems very believable that this is a flashback kind of memory, that Carmi is remembering what it was like to work in these high-end, very pressured, high-stakes kitchens with a very abusive, demeaning, demoralizing chef, and that maybe he's dreaming about this to try and resolve that experience and not be so troubled by it.
Yeah, I think I hold it in my mind as the show. I'm talking a little bit differently, as opposed to just holding it as a dream to interpret. Maybe the show is trying to establish why he is the way he is, to give a glimpse of how he had to survive in his new family he established when he left. And that the contrast of, a lot of people see it as like this great achievement and look how creative and adventurous and amazing, which I think connects with like, must have been nice, must have been luxurious, must have been all these things.
Swanky.
Yeah. And what you see is almost a dehumanizing experience.
Almost.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A truly dehumanizing experience. And I think when we were talking a little bit earlier about that opening scene of just how emotionless the whole thing is, not just the people, but the environment. It's so sterile and regimented, and it almost looked militaristic.
Sure, or mechanical or...
Yeah. So... No, that's all I got. I'll have more, but...
So to sort of to that end, and taking it even, I guess, further in the Freudian way, maybe the chef is the executive chef, and Carmi being the sous chef in this dream. Maybe the chef is a symbolic of his father or his mother, some parental caregiver.
Which we haven't been introduced to yet.
Correct.
Except maybe right here.
Well, but in terms of interpreting a dream and interpreting things not at the literal level, but at the symbolic level, that maybe this isn't just a flashback, but it is also a reenactment of an earlier flashback, but that Carmi's not ready to deal with that so directly. So his unconscious mind is trying to deal with it in its adjacent form, in a more recent event. You know, is the dream reflective of these internalized messages, these internalized experiences from early adolescence, childhood, being criticized, having high demands, pressure to achieve. It could also be maybe the chef is a part of Carmi that Carmi's trying to deal with. that the part of Carmi that is harsh and mean and demoralizing, just as much as the sauce. There's probably a technical term. The chef in the dream that's making the sauce and is not making it well or right. That those are all parts of Carmi.
Oh.
That Carmi's trying to grapple with, trying to integrate, trying to make peace with, trying to figure out how to attend to.
The sauce that's constantly not enough, not right.
Yes. And
not there yet.
The part of Carmi that was truly human and not getting something quite right. Mm-hmm. But then again, I can also imagine that maybe Carmi is the chef.
Executive chef?
Is the executive chef, and his parents are the sous chef and the sauce chef. And that Carmi's trying to deal with his rage about these two incompetent parents.
Not getting it.
And
I can see that. That breaks it down a little bit for me, because I feel like Carmi himself was getting it. But what he was experiencing is he was turning down his emotion to survive whatever was happening. Because when we watch it, it truly is just abusive language the executive chef is using, and makes him repeat it.
Yes. And
he repeats it, but he repeats it without emotion. So he is surviving. He's like, I will do what you say, but it's not, how do I say that?
It's not a sort of anxious and involved way of he's trying to anxiously get involved and entangled and take care of the executive chef.
Right.
He's going to take care of the executive chef by being independent and shut down and shut off.
Pushing through.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in that way, it's that prototype of the dismissive and avoidant. Right.
And that's kind of in his world, his learned way to move through.
Yes, to navigate.
To navigate, yeah.
And to move through his own needs, which is to not have them.
Right.
To turn them off.
And so it's almost as if he doesn't have an option but to turn off. But to truly live and be in that experience would be annihilating.
Yep. Yeah. Annihilating. Ooh. Foreshadowing.
So, yeah, it's rich.
Annihilating. That's what his brother did.
Right.
And who knows about the other family members. But I can imagine he would want to annihilate.
Yeah. There's so much complexity to it. Because it also makes me think of, we talked in the last episode about the difference of him and Sugar being in the same family, and how she turns up the volume and he'll turn down. And so, wondering just how that works. She may have had different demands, different expectations, a different role in the family. But
different temperaments, different birth order.
Right. Yeah, isn't that fascinating? None of us have the same parents.
That's right. And none of us grew up in the same house.
Yeah. It's always interesting to hold. So, the dream. Is any other observations of or any noticings that you had of the environment, of the symbolism? Everyone's in uniform.
Yeah, the sterile nature of that dreamscape reminds me of trying to make something simple, make it clean, make it not messy. And affect, emotion is just inherently messier. It's not, it doesn't fall under the category of logic, and we feel what we feel. And it does remind me of someone who's shut down, powered off any of the messy needs that are emotional, attachment, relational needs, and is picturing his world as a clean Tesla vehicle assembly line that is ironically producing food, but it's so disconnected from earth, from soil, from rain, from...
Yeah, I think that's where I go back to. It has such a military vibe. And with veterans I've worked with, I think it'd be really inappropriate for me to change that for them. I say me change that for them. For me to discount their need to survive in moments of having to shut down, turn the emotion off, turn it way down, because there are moments that it's very called for and needed. And so to me, it sounds like when I'm thinking of Carmi in his dream is he feels the need. So something is so important that he needs to feel this turning down.
Yeah. And the question is that intrapsychically within him?
Yeah.
Or is it environmentally? And or perhaps...
And or both.
Both. That it's not just about how Carmi is relating to his environment and the people in his environment. It's also how Carmi is relating to his internal world.
Which is what we're always holding in attachment. How we're relating to ourselves, within ourselves, and how we're relating to the world outside of us simultaneously.
Absolutely.
So we talked about talking a scene at a time to keep us a little more organized and focused.
All right.
So what's the next scene?
Well, we could think about the next scene, but I don't remember that scene well enough to really talk about it.
Yeah, we weren't going to talk about it.
Let's not talk about that.
Well, it's going to come. One thing we did talk about that is that it is a small window of repair, much like the family dinner.
Yeah.
How there are moments in life that we just let our armor down and don't have to be in such protective mode. And those happen sporadically. And there's many opportunities. And so I think one way that we could just briefly talk about is that those windows of repair they're going to happen. They're going to be offered. We may miss them, and that's okay, but they'll come back around again. But in particular, that seems to be a spot in which the characters in the show...
Yeah, in the back. The dock.
The pressure is gone. All the chaos remains in the kitchen.
Yeah, open space, open sky. Yeah, and they're able to just sort of see each other's humanity.
Yeah, there's room to complain, but not be judged or be attacked for complaining. It's more empathized with. Yeah.
So another theme section of the second episode is, so Sydney has been there staging.
Yeah, that word is...
Whatever that word is. I don't know. I kept meaning to look it up.
A French word, maybe?
I would imagine. So she's been there volunteering, essentially, getting paid very little, probably minimum wage. And she comes with what I thought was an offer towards security, bringing...
100-page document.
100-page in a binder... with probably a table of contents.
It definitely looks like an essay I turned in high school, and I didn't write enough, and so I made it look pretty to try to get a better grade.
That's funny.
That's what it, yeah.
Those were my exams in grad school. Some of my comprehensive exams we'd turn in 3-inch binder.
Okay. I thought you were going to say you sprayed perfume on it and glitter and stuff. So maybe you'd get a better grade.
It sounds like we're back to the opening part of our recording. So Sydney, I think, is trying to bring some organization, some structure, some security. And she's essentially saying, I want to stay here. I want you to want me to stay here.
I want you to want me.
I want you to want me, and I know you need me. And this kind of unspoken mutuality of you need me and I need you. And we are both here for the same reason, even if we haven't been able to articulate it yet.
Yeah.
And so she brings this object of security, because it's how to afford Sydney, and it's how to make the whole restaurant more efficient and operable and sustainable. And what I thought was interesting is the way in which there's Carmi's fear of Sydney. Carmi doesn't know how to receive help, receive security, and has this initial sort of rejection of it. and suspicion of it, almost. And a kind of, sounds good, I'll get to this later. And part of what makes, which is where I think we need to emphasize the grace of the honesty by which we come by who we are. That when we are in these insecure states of mind or insecure states of relationships, when something good comes to us, we have a very difficult time recognizing that it's actually good, and we can often reject the good and end up seeking the unhelpful.
Oh, that's interesting. When you put it like that, from Carmi's perspective, her well-oiled machine that she just handed him could easily be received as a threat. Oh my gosh, I just lost it. It was so good. Let me chew on it for a second.
Maybe a threat of like saying you don't know what you're doing.
No, that it's a grand misattunement. She offered him a really grand, big misattunement. And his response is, you don't see me. Even though this is good for you, this is good for his reply is, you don't see me. You don't see the actual shit I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
That I can't even pay for labor. I can't even do this. You don't see me. Don't bring me that. You don't see what I'm really going through.
Yes.
And so that misattunement,
sure.
If she could have attuned to that,
sure, and
then presented, then it might have been received completely different. Maybe. He's in so much threat.
No, I get that. But, that's interesting. It's just that she was coming with her need.
Exactly. They were colliding.
Yeah, right. And neither can really pause with their own mind. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that Sydney does it perfectly.
Oh, right.
But what she's bringing seems like a gift of security. But her timing of it is misattuned.
Yes.
She hasn't quite checked in. Is he available? Is he in this state of mind where he can contemplate this and reflect on this and attend to this?
Well, this is what makes adult attachment so difficult. Parent-child attachment is a little bit, I don't like the word easier, but there's only one to be attuned to. It's a one-way attunement. But in the adult attachment, it's a two-way. It's of equals. And that's when it often collides, is because we both have a need, and we often present that need at the exact same time. And then we go, screw you. You're not meeting my need.
Yeah, it is just amazing how we can't see that obvious reality in the parent-child dynamic, that we are there to simply attune to what the kid needs, but we miss that task entirely,
right?
Because we are troubled by our own mind, enraptured in it.
We sometimes forget that it's not an equal attunement.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so authority comes in, a protective authority comes in to say to the family, you are sick and things need to change. And these are the things that need to change. And in episode 2, that's what ends up starting to happen, is we're moving toward tying up these sort of loose ends or addressing things that have been denied and ignored. And so we're going to accurately or effectively or appropriately repair things in the kitchen. Things are going to have to operate appropriately, just like Sydney's attempt to help make the restaurant work more effectively and appropriately with her 3-ring binder.
Right.
And just like Carmi has been trying to bring the system, a new system, not Michael's old system, his brother's old system, but a new system that he's bringing from his training. In that scene of the inspector, you have all these sort of disavowed, projected, denied responsibilities, especially around a cousin, because he's the one who really helped perpetuate the denial of this gas leak or this hole in the wall, or I forget exactly what it is.
Yeah, it was an improper sealing off of a gas line.
And so people are blaming each other. And
that sounded so official. Like I know restaurant stuff. That was really fun. Oh, this is what it was.
I mean,
of course, if they would, just according to the story. But yes, the passing of the shirking of responsibility.
Yeah.
No, this is your store. No, this is your house.
Massive ruptures. You can see really the fissures between Carmi and Cousin. And Marcus and Sydney sort of try and step in and repair, try to break up the fights. This
may be so off, but I did not get Sydney's response. And when she initially saw the letter C, and it was just like this disbelief and says, oh my God, like almost, she says, oh my God, like she was going to throw up. Like it was so offensive.
Quite. Yeah. So what is it that you didn't?
I don't know. Like it just didn't seem to, like it wasn't a family matter at that point. It didn't seem like to her. It was like, it's just like, am I involved in something? Like, or am I about to sign up with a group that would allow this? Like this is almost just like, she's like, that's disgusting.
Sure. And a C grade is disgusting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't eat at a restaurant that had a C.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I imagine it's partly Sydney coming to grips with what she really needs. She's starting to feel the disgust of like, I am working at a C restaurant. I want to work at a C restaurant. And that's something she's probably never done before.
Yeah.
But she somehow wants to work there. And that grappling of, what do I do with this need? And the next scene of going to the hardware store is, again, another example of Sydney trying to bring repair, trying to bring some organization, some structure.
Yeah, it's really interesting because she does not like Cousin Richie.
I don't know if I would go that far.
Really? I think she is appalled by him. She's offended by him.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I just don't see her as someone who has enough emotions to not like or like. I don't know that she likes anyone. Who would you say she likes? Doesn't like Tina. It doesn't seem like she likes Carmi. She respects him.
Yeah, I think she likes Ibra. I think later in the show we'll see other liking, but that may be clouding my mind.
Yeah, and I'm saying like at this point of her character development, I don't really see her liking anyone because I don't really see her being emotionally online yet.
Yeah, but there's something about like that she's agreed to drive with him to the hardware store.
Yes.
And
at Carmi's insistence or direction. Wasn't volunteered.
Yeah, voluntold.
Yeah.
But she doesn't put up a big fight. And it's just like willing, like, okay, I will just put up with this stuff because this is what has to be done. So am I speaking against what I just said earlier?
I mean, maybe.
Not uncommon.
I mean, she's clearly not going because she likes to hang out with Cousin.
Right.
She's going out of respecting the authority.
But there was a moment, even before they got to the hardware store, when he was like, I wasn't expecting company. And these Arby cups are from two different visits or something. The word he used was really great.
Yeah.
And it was just a really quiet respect. I can respect that. It was just a small glimpse of like, we're both human.
Yes.
And here we are, even though I think she does not like him. I'm not
disagreeing with you, but I also don't think she dislikes him. She seems rather neutral, and she's surprisingly able to not shame the fuck out of him for being such a douchebag of a dude who is so prideful, who won't ask for help.
I think she does, though.
Well,
she just does it in a very astute way. She doesn't do it in a catty way. She does it in a I'm better than you way.
It's interesting, our projections and interpretations of
who are you saying is projecting?
I know, Avi, you.
Yeah, like there's another scene in that. Oh, this has nothing to do with that. Never mind.
Okay, so to me, she is very even-keeled in her, she's just solving the problem. And she doesn't like rub his nose in it, but she also isn't afraid to solve the problem nevertheless.
Right. And when did she go and get the right caulk?
I mean...
it doesn't show it.
Correct.
And it's just like, oh, I got it.
For me, it represents how oblivious Cousin would be. It sort of represents he was off somewhere, and she just has to just steadily.
Did we give Cousin a classification?
Yeah, we talked about him being in the anxious and tangled.
Okay.
Because he's in everybody's business.
Oh, that's right. He's very entangled.
And
ramping up. Right.
Escalate things. He's very verbose. He's using tons of language and can't get quite organized and can't tell a coherent story despite his attempts to try. But there's something about what he's experiencing with Sydney that is moving toward this sort of security because he starts being more tender and isn't caustic about his various, what was it, Jack in the Box? What was it?
Arby's. Which that's actually what I was going to say earlier when it's like, it doesn't matter, but it does.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, what I caught there is that it's Arby's.
Yeah.
We have the meats.
Yeah, right.
He's going to a fast food version of roast beef sandwiches on the side.
That's so funny.
He's cheating.
That got lost on me. Yeah. And cheating or the inability to really seek the good. I mean, like that's the irony and the asinineness or the insidiousness of insecurity of attachment is that though you have access to the best beef sandwich, you're going to swing by Arby's and get the worst to feed yourself.
Multiple times.
And frankly, multiple times on different occasions, which is just like more incriminating.
Right.
In some way. But I thought that scene was again another hints at repair, hints at collaboration.
There's little glimpses of it.
Because Sydney really doesn't shame him. She just says, hey, I got you. I got us. I got this situation. It wasn't fantastically done, but maybe it was appropriately done for the situation.
So, yeah, I agree. So the end of that scene, the repair, she was not shaming.
Yeah.
The leading up, the sarcasm, all the way.
Yeah. Yeah, they were beefing on the way.
Yeah.
Fighting. Fighting, beefing.
Oh, no. Will you hit that little button? It's on the side of that white plug.
Oh, no.
The light, those who are podcasting aren't going to know what just happened.
Correct.
The light just went off. My automatic lights. I'm never here this late. Oh, no. So, yeah, but a small window of repair.
Yeah, another window of repair that Sydney's leading.
Yes.
That Cousin isn't leading. Even though he leans into it, he sort of softens.
Right.
You can go somewhere.
I'm hesitant because I always think I'm always thinking through the couple's lens, and this dyad right here of it's not uncommon that I'll see the avoidant offer that olive branch as a way to repair. And so it wasn't a huge emotional. It was still a doing. It was something of service. The way she offered it had an emotional connection to it. Oftentimes with the couples, it's more of like, but look what I did. I did this for you. Can we move past this now? So that was same but different.
One of the last things I have to say about the episode is, these patterns of connecting, patterns of attachment are so systemic.
Yeah.
And here we have in the second episode, the introduction of the uncle. And there's this scene between Carmi and the uncle and about the mess that is this restaurant that the uncle somehow knows. And the uncle knows that it's a real big mess because as Carmi learns, the uncle had lent Michael $300,000.
Yeah. The unveiling of family secrets
And
that everyone's known about, but important players.
And no one's known about, or no one's talked about, or
Right.
yeah. And I love the sort of brilliant question from Carmi to Uncle. Why would you lend him $300,000? And I think his response is because I loved him too. And you see how systemically, in all directions, and we'll see later as episodes unveil more family, the insecurity of things and the enmeshment of things and the blurring of whose is whose and the attempts to meet each other's needs, but they're really misattunements. The lending of money was really not all that helpful. We have no evidence that it was helpful. In fact, it seems like a terrible burden now that Carmi comes to realize that not only do they have all these debtors to their vendors, but now they have a giant debt to pay to the uncle.
To the uncle,
that
yeah.
he's inherited.
I'm just making an observation of a reenactment we're doing right now.
Oh, huh?
Within the show of not talking about what we should talk about.
Which is?
And that's that Michael committed suicide. We haven't mentioned that at all. We hinted around that he died.
Yes.
In the last episode.
Yeah.
But we haven't directly, and it's been revealed in the episode already.
It happens in episode 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it's interesting to me that we aren't talking about the main thing that has created this. Well, it hasn't created, has continued to.
Yeah. It is definitely
chaos.
a dramatic marker that has created even more chaos or even more insecurity.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. My notes don't reflect that either, even though I know I've been thoughtful and mindful about it.
Well, we have it in the disclaimer or the.
That's right. At the up front, like, hey, warning, we're going to talk about these things.
But it's funny that we aren't actively talking about it.
Oh, that's brilliant, Michael. Well, you go, since you brought it up.
I don't have a lot to say about it. I think it's going to come up more in later episodes.
It does, as it gets more confronted.
Right.
But it is, it's so tragic and so not uncommon. So many families, this is part of their life story.
I've been touched by it, yeah.
Yeah, if it hasn't touched your direct family, it has touched you indirectly. And if you don't know that it's touched you indirectly, then you probably have a lot of blinders. And we're not talking about
a lot of family secrets.
Yeah, family secrets. And even in the first and second episode, it's not very directly dealt with.
Right.
It's not very directly named. And thus it's creating such havoc. And it seems like probably no one really has the capacity to really deal with it directly. And that's not surprising of a larger system that has gotten a C that is not functioning well. Yeah. I haven't really thought much about talking about it today in this episode, but it's in there.
Right.
And it's in its more direct disclosure unfolding. A symptom rather than a cause of anything. But I think it's very understandable, and I think that's a bit of how your mind was starting to even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
As the cause of why the restaurant is as dysfunctional as it is, or the members, but it's really not the cause of it. It's really much more of a symptom. Yeah.
Yeah, just like as we're going to talk about addiction, I think we're also going to hold that in the same light.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That is a symptom versus the cause.
And a symptom of insecurity of attachment at its foundational.
Right.
Even if it's more complicated than just attachment disturbances. There's biological or genetic elements that are playing a part. But it's clear that characters like Carmi really don't want to talk about it directly, don't want to talk about it at length, including the way in which Carmi wasn't at the funeral.
Right.
Avoiding denying, dismissing.
Which is an interesting scene, and we'll wrap this up in a second, but the interesting scene with Fack saying like, hey, I didn't go to the funeral. I'm sorry. And telling Carmi, as if Carmi, he assumed,
yes,
you were there at your brother's funeral.
That's right.
And he, to the point is like, I sent flowers. I hope they were lovely. And Carmi just, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When is this going to get fixed?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And even there's Fack's attempt at repair, at connection, but it falls really flat and it's totally misattuned to the moment.
Right. Yeah, it was so misattuned. Like there's panic going on. And he was like, oh, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. Can I bring up your brother's suicide and how I didn't go to the funeral and now I feel bad? Right. No, actually you can't. This is Carmi's sort of response.
Yeah. So I don't have the expectation that we're going to solve or do anything with the topic of suicide today.
Apparently we're not therapists then, solving everything one session at a time.
One session at a time. But more or less of it, just a noticing that it's a big topic and how easy that is for, like, just we're talking about a TV show, but imagine being in a family, how easy it is not to talk about something that is blatantly existing.
Yeah. And painfully existing.
And we're trying to move around it and with it and through it, and it's chaotic.
Hence why security of attachment is so important, so that we can move through these things with greater skill and restoration and healing. And we're clearly not going to wrap up an episode and a phenomenon other than to sit with the tragedy of it all.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is what the show does to you.
I think so.
Yeah. It's brilliant. I really love it.
The only thing I love more than the show is having drinks with a therapist.
We're going to have to make t-shirts. That'll be our merch. Drinks with therapists. Brilliant. It's always a pleasure.
Cheers, Michael.
Cheers. We'll move on to episode 3. Look forward to it. Clink.